Good afternoon, everybody. I hope my audio is working okay. Wi-Fi was a little bit iffy this morning. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm Jaden Braves. I'm the CEO of the Young Politicians of Canada. We're an organization to get young Canadians involved in democracy from across the country in every capacity. Young people's voices need to be heard in Canada. I'm very thrilled to welcome to our final keynote session featuring Minister Timothy Halman, Nova Scotia's Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and the former PEI intern, Sophia Linfield. It is an absolute pleasure to have this panel being hosted from the Young Politicians of Canada, and I'm really glad. Again, hope my connection's okay. Without further ado, to Minister Halman and Sophia.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Jaden. And also hoping that my audio is also okay, because the joys of, living in Nova Scotia, sometimes your internet connectivity gets a little weird. So we're working on it. But yeah, I know that we are getting towards the end of your folks' day. So I think we'll probably just jump right in to the questions. And if my audio gets a little weird at some point, maybe I'll just end up turning off my camera and I'll just focus on the minister for a little bit. So yeah, we'll jump in to the first question. So Minister Halman, your dedication to empowering and engaging youth in civic engagement has been evident throughout your career, both as an educator and as a politician. So because of that, how do you believe that young voices can be amplified in climate change discussions? And really, what role do you see?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Sophia. I hope everyone can hear me. Sophia, thank you for the great work you're doing in Nova Scotia and in the Atlantic region on climate change policy. And Jaden, shout out to you and your colleagues of Young Politicians of Canada. I commend you for the work that you're doing in promoting young people being involved in public policy, being involved in developing the rules and laws that will govern our communities. I think to answer your question, Sophia, you have to actively engage. I do that by instinct. I spent my 20s and 30s in high schools as a teacher. And I saw a lot of young people who wanted opportunities to be involved in their community. And certainly when I was teaching, I utilized every opportunity that I had to empower young people to be involved, whether it was a model parliament or having guest speakers or getting out in our community to the local municipal council or our provincial legislature, doing everything I could in my power to captivate them about politics. I was very fortunate growing up. I lived in Montreal in the 1990s, and the first time I voted was the 1995 Quebec referendum. I voted no in that referendum to Quebec sovereignty, just so for clarity. I think there was like a 98% voter turnout. So I learned very early on when I was 18 just how important engagement was. And when I became an educator, I very much made it a strategic vision for me to make sure I do everything I can to engage young people in the political process. And now, as an active politician, now as a minister of the Crown in the province of Nova Scotia, I'm still trying to do that. But to answer your question to the point, you have to, as adults, we have to actively engage young people and make sure you're at the table.
Yeah, no, I mean, a little bit biased, obviously, as a youth, but yeah, completely agree. Amazing. So off of that, talking maybe about a little bit more of a tangible action that both of us are involved with, can you share a little bit more about the motivations behind establishing the Nova Scotia Youth Climate Council and how you really envision it complementing your work as Minister of Environment and Climate Change?
I learned a lot from my students in the 15 years that I taught high school, and I taught a range of subjects from sociology to Canadian history to African Nova Scotia studies. And it's often said that a great teacher never stops learning from their students. And one thing I picked up on very early on in my teaching career, mid 2000s or so, was a growing climate anxiety and a desire of young people to talk about their future, a desire for young people to take ownership of their future, of the future, and to be able to have a say in the development of policies. And certainly, I always encourage my classroom to encompass that type of culture, where we could have those open and frank discussions. But it is evident that there is a fear for the future. We all want a clean, sustainable future in Canada. You have a strong consensus among the provinces and the federal government, strong alignment that we need to move quickly on the transition to clean renewables. So to that point, I think when there is a period of transition in societies and in economies, naturally young people are going to want to have a say in that. And that is why on becoming a minister, I asked my team to begin to develop what that structure would look like. And out of all that incredible work that my team did, the Nova Scotia Youth Climate Council was launched. And it's taking, Sophia, you're a part of it. You have incredible colleagues. It's taking on a life of its own now, and you're taking ownership of it. As adults, our job is to set the stage. You take it and you go with it. And that's exactly what's happening in Nova Scotia. I believe the federal government years ago set up a youth climate council. I know members of parliament in their own way set up kind of youth councils as well. So absolutely, it was created to make sure young people in Nova Scotia have a seat at the table, have a seat with the minister. And as I'm contemplating policy, you have a direct say and you have a direct line of advice to the minister and then subsequently the premier to design climate change policy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think your point too about it kind of taking on a life of its own and having kind of the youth that in each subsequent council is going to really help solidify this even more. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the first year and kind of getting us started. But yeah, I'm so excited, both as a citizen, and a former member, to get to watch it as it continues to grow. Yeah, that's amazing. We'll kind of go off of that a little bit into talking about youth's experiences in politics more broadly. And I'm sure you are aware that a common experience of youth who do engage in politics is tokenization. Having a seat at the table, but no influence over decision making. And I know that as someone who's been working in politics as a young person and young woman for many years at this point, I definitely have experienced it firsthand since I started working in politics, and unfortunately continue to experience it often to this day. And so it is a really important topic that is being felt by youth every single day when they're trying to engage in these larger systems. So because of this, how do you feel that you've worked to ensure that youth are being meaningfully engaged and that our expertise, experience, and perspectives are meaningfully shaping policies?
That's an excellent question that you ask. For something to be authentic, you have to actively push back at any notion of tokenization or the proverbial kind of checklist. Well, we just went through the motions and there we did the consultation and so forth. No, I think what needs to be done is political leaders from across the spectrum have to actively engage and build relationships with young Canadians. And that means investing time. That means ensuring that you are part of the formal process by which a minister makes a decision. And here in Nova Scotia, the youth are now embedded in that decision-making process. And I believe the Youth Climate Council knows that they can reach out to me and the staff, the senior leadership staff here at a Nova Scotia Environment at any time to give your input on policy. Along with that, the Nova Scotia Youth Climate Council has a seat at the Ministers' Roundtable. It's an advisory board that the Minister of Environment in Nova Scotia has that meets every 2 months, so that you are at the table. But I think in a more organic way, it's I'm getting to know you, Sophia. I'm getting to know your colleagues. It's spending time with each other. Politics, I often say, is the art of the possible. And something is possible because you build a relationship with a person or an organization. You build up trust. So politics definitely, it's about relationships. So I think that's key. I think if we create structures for youth to have a say at the table, it's incumbent upon the ministers and MPPs, MLAs, members of parliament, members of the House of Assembly in Newfoundland and Labrador to actively engage young people and build those relationships.
Yeah, no, 100%. I know even just from my own experience, relationships has been key both in politics and in climate, activism more generally. So I think it's always something, very helpful to understand each other as humans when we're trying to go into this work and to rebuild trust and especially rebuild a relationship between youth more broadly and the government. So I absolutely agree. Definitely something that we also are really hoping to kind of keep at the forefront and going forward with our work. Beautiful. I know that we are starting to get towards the end of our session, and we do want to leave some time for some questions. So very quickly, could you just give us kind of a final message for climate-concerned youth in attendance about why it is important to engage in elections? Again, the reason kind of we're all here today to learn about.
Yeah. There's an old, I think, you go back to the Greek philosophers, and I think it was Plato that said, you're going to be ruled whether or not you like it. It's incumbent upon you to be involved in politics, because if you don't, you'll be ruled by someone inferior to yourself. And I can remember studying, Greek philosophy in university, and that really struck me. That it's on us, all of us, to be involved, to be engaged. When I was teaching, I used to have a quote on my classroom wall, which, what will be your contribution? How will you make your community, your province, country, the world a better place? And so I think we have to, as adults and young adults, we have to actively engage and build relationships and inspire young people that you are powerful, that you have a strong voice, and there are many mechanisms you can utilize to be engaged. And when you study democracy, democracies historically, sometimes they collapse on themselves, and one of the factors is a lack of participation. So we should be alarmed at the lack of participation, not only among young Canadians, but it's across all demographics. So that's the challenge for the current crop of political leadership. But then the next generation, which is you, of political leaders, as you continue to build your relationships and rise in your authority and how you exercise your power, we've got to ignite the fire and the passion in our communities, that you can make your community a better place. If you have a vision, if you have ideas, get out there and work and make your community better. Work with others, build coalitions, build alliances. That's politics. That's the art of the possible. And so I'm optimistic for the future. Just being able to, Sophia and you and your colleagues who I've gotten to know here in Nova Scotia, being around you, it renews my faith that tomorrow is going to be better.
That's very kind of you to say, Minister Halman. And thank you so much for taking the time to kind of chat through some of, again, your background, your experience, and your thoughts on all of these topics. I know we do have some questions in the chat. So I'm just going to take a moment here and maybe we'll answer a couple of them. Beautiful. Yeah. So our first one is during the appointment of the Youth Climate Council, how do you stand out? What are governments looking for?
That's an excellent question. So the appointment of a minister is quite fascinating. In any province, territory, or at the federal level, as you know, the prime minister or the premier, what makes them so powerful within government is they have the power of appointment. Very often, even much more different than, say, a U.S. president. In the United States, the U.S. president has to get permission from the Congress for the secretarial appointments, whereas in the Westminster model, prime minister or the premier of a province has power of appointment. So upon winning an election, an MLA, an MPP, often you get interviewed by the premier-elect. In my particular case, our premier in Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, asked me what I was interested in. Naturally, given my professional background, very interested in education, But if you said, well, if you didn't go there, what would you be interested in? And I said, my goodness, I mean, I've always had such a great passion for sustainable development and climate change policy. So in the August of 2021, I was appointed Minister of Environment and Climate Change. With respect to a Youth Climate Council, we work with a not-for-profit organization in Nova Scotia called the Clean Foundation. And the Clean Foundation is a trusted partner of the government of Nova Scotia. They assist the government of Nova Scotia in delivering climate change policy. And not only that, they're incredible in helping, government, just give government good advice. So they facilitate the Youth Climate Council so that the Climate Council is essentially arm's length from government. And as Sophia indicated, that it's kind of taking on a life of its own. And what do governments look for? Well, for me, as a minister, when I work with, whether it's a young Canadian or a colleague in government, it's the vision, the long term, right? Someone who's not thinking what Canada will look like 2 years from now, but what will we look like 20, 30 years from now? So it's that big picture. And so I know there's a lot to that question. I think we could spend an hour answering it, but I hope that gives you some substance to work with.
I know definitely a question that both you and I could probably talk about for a long time. Beautiful. We are going to go to just one last final question as we start to kind of wrap up our time here. And this is just wondering what some of the grassroots organizing or supports are that you were mentioning in your bio.
Yeah. So when my first election campaign, the team that I assembled was 99% my former students, and the average age was well below the age of 22. I think my campaign manager, who subsequently, we won that election and the 2021 election, all in their 20s, and my official agent, everyone. I was so blessed. I was so humbled just to have that support from my former students, and what an incredible experience they had. And, we dubbed that campaign the little campaign that could. And we as a team, we won that in that election. And my 2021 election was led by my former students. So to me, that's very important. It was important to me, win or lose in those elections, that I engaged youth and made sure youth had not only a seat at the table, but they led the campaign. In campaigns, I mean, as a candidate, you're out there knocking on doors 12, 14 hours a day, if it's, in the summertime, in the spring. But your campaign team they're leading it. And I'm proud to say that both those campaigns in 2017 and 2021 were led by folks in their early 20s and did an incredible job. So to me, that's grassroots youth engagement, not only having them as a part of the process, but they lead the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, again, from my own experience, helping out on some campaigns is a great way to start getting involved as a young person and helping champion the people you want to see. So what a lovely, note to end on. I know Ami has some final words to finish up with, but just wanted to personally thank the minister for taking the time to chat with me, and thank everyone else for their help being patient with my tech difficulties. So pass it over to Ami.
Amazing. Thank you so much for both of you for joining us today. Politics is the art of the possible is definitely a quote that I'll be using from now on. We're being a bit creative today and doing the introduction of our esteemed guest speakers at the end. Trust me, it's more impactful this way. So let's end it with a bang. Minister Timothy Halman was born in Montreal and raised in Cole Harbour in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. He is a dedicated advocate for environmental stewardship and youth engagement in politics. With a background in education, Minister Halman served as social studies teachers prior to entering politics, and he was elected in the Nova Scotia House of Assembly in 2017 and then re-elected in 2021. He has been instrumental in passing legislation such as the Environmental Goals and Climate Change Reduction Act, which outlines Nova Scotia's roadmap to a sustainable prosperity. So on behalf of all youth, thank you, Minister, for your ongoing work and championing climate action and youth empowerment. Thank you so much for being here. And also to our lovely moderator, Sophia Linfield, who is a passionate climate activist and advocate from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and also a former parliamentary intern of mine. Her insight from working in federal politics have also informed her current role as a member of Nova Scotia's first Provincial Youth Climate Council, where she works tirelessly to bridge the gap between young people and government. And she currently works at Net Zero Grants Coordinator with the Foundation for Environmental Stewardship. So thank you, Sophia, for your ongoing activism. Thank you for both of you. And I will be moving on to my closing remarks. So thank you to the both of you. Please, everyone, give a warm thank you to both of these amazing people today.
Thanks so much, Ami.
Thank you, Ami.
Right. Okay, we are not done, which is great. For our closing remarks today, I want to express my sincere thanks for all of you for being a part of Environmental Leadership Canada and GreenPAC's 4th Annual Flip Summit, as well as all of the numerous organizations, our funders who fund the Parliamentary Internship of the Environment Program, and GreenPAC's sponsors whose support made this event possible. As we conclude this summit, let's take a moment to kind of reflect on the insight that we've all gained and hopefully the connections that we've made. And let's carry the spirit of environmental leadership forward in our action and advocacy. With the election approaching in 2025, although it can be sooner, I hope all of you will actively engage in the upcoming election. So whether that means considering running for office yourselves, supporting a candidate whose values align with your environmental stewardship, advocating for important issues, mobilizing your friends and family to vote, criticizing the colonial action with non-environmental peers, or participating in formal, informal, and community politics. There's a role for each of us to play that's beyond voting. So I invite you to share your thoughts and feedback with us, helping us improve and grow our future event. If you like this, if you want more from us, that would be great. Our feedback survey is going to be input in the chat. So please let us know how we can improve and tailor our efforts to better serve you. I also encourage for all of you to subscribe to our newsletters to stay updated on any future events and initiative. Thank you again for your participation and commitment to environmental leadership. So don't forget to join us for the networking session that's going to be hosted by Apathy is Boring, starting in just 5 minutes. I know so many of you probably have some sort of online fatigue, so do I, but my rule of thumb is talking to at least 2 people at networking events. So I encourage all of you to stay and say hi, share your LinkedIn, get to know some of your organization's work. Jennifer from Apathy is Boring will guide us through the session, and it will help us to foster some connections and conversations that would further our collective efforts. The networking portion is going to remain until 5 p.m., so feel free to come speak to us. ELC has a table as well, so if you want to come talk to me, learn more about our work, we'll be happy to have this conversation. So with that, we're going to take a quick transition break, and we'll have Jennifer from Apathy is Boring on and kind of give us an introduction to our final networking session. So thank you all so much for being engaging, for joining, and please reply to our survey. We really do take a lot of your feedbacks into consideration. So thank you very much for all of you here. And yeah, our networking session will commence shortly. So, and that is a wrap for Flip 4.0. Thank you all.